Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and here in England the second COVID lockdown is due to end in just under 2 weeks' time, and Boris Johnson's government have said that they will not seek to extend it. It will definitely be ending in that first week in December, but that they will seek to reapply the tier system with different measures in place, tougher measures in place for the most part, which actually means completely replacing the tier system with maybe one that does a better job, who knows. However, he faces a bit of a political battle with his own support base and MPs who are of the science-denying variety. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, Boris Johnson has himself a right political mess now. I've no sympathy for him. It is one of his own making, and it's one that is going to result in a lot of extra deaths next year. After delaying for weeks, Boris Johnson has finally supported another national lockdown to halt the rise in COVID cases that would have melted our healthcare systems again. In delaying this action, it has meant that the lockdown has needed to be longer, inflicting more economic harm, resulting in more needless deaths, costing more jobs, and it's not even clear if the extended lockdown will even do the job, because we're at the point now where even the government's own advisors are saying, we do not know if it's going to be long enough, and yet the government have already, so they say, made the political decision not to extend it. Now, the number of cases has stopped rising. In terms of the only data that we can get access to, we can see that the number of cases has stopped rising. But it may still be too early to see if it's going to be enough by the end of the lockdown to get the R value below 1. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But if the R value even does dip just below 1, if it's only just below 1, and then it all spikes up again afterwards as everyone goes out hugging each other again, then we're still in for a tough time of it for the rest of next month as well as into the new year. Boris Johnson, he has as his main aim here this utter determination to let people mix households for Christmas dinner. It's all about Christmas dinner. Apparently this is the thing that we must do. You know, it's a complete madness as far as I'm concerned. I was doing a podcast again with Chris Wilson last week, which I'll link below again. And in it, I made my view on this quite clear. And when I say my view, what I mean is the scientific certainty as explained by public health experts. It's not really my view at all. If people even attempt to have anything approximating what is for most people a normal Christmas, it will kill people. Now, I made it very clear that when it comes to blame, as far as I'm concerned, it falls on those who are not following the rules. So if the government allow the mixing of households at Christmas and people do that and they're following those rules, then the deaths will be the fault of the government. But that being said, I would still urge people to think things through. If the government say it's safe for people to have Christmas dinner mixing 3 households, I think might be the plan, although it's not been officially stated. That doesn't mean it's safe for the people involved. What it means is they think that hospitals will cope with the extra influx of COVID cases caused by it. And they also think that the deaths caused will be of a low enough number that their government survives into the new year. So when they say safe, they mean safe for them politically. 4 out of 5 people who are infectious with COVID do not have symptoms. That's what makes this such a dangerous virus. And so they'll have no idea that they are infectious. We carry out very few asymptomatic tests. As a result of having a jolly Christmas dinner with Granny, some people are going to kill their beloved Granny. That's a fact. And the thing about this virus, just like any aspect of scientific reality, is it doesn't really care about your feelings on the matter. Oh, it doesn't feel like Christmas without Granny. Well, I'm wondering what it's going to feel like next year if Granny dies in January and 13 months later everyone sat around that table wondering who killed Granny last year then. Because I don't think that's a normal Christmas either. But you know what? The loonies are in charge. Boris Johnson will want to end the lockdown. Such as it is. I've hardly noticed any difference, I have to say. I'm not saying there hasn't been a difference, but I haven't really noticed it out and about. But there it is in the first week of December. It's going to end. So he says he will then want people to adhere to strict measures still for a few more weeks in order to allow this ill-advised inter-house mixing on Christmas Day. And that way he gets to say he saved Christmas and he allowed people to have that Christmas. He will hope that there's not enough people dying to generate a loud enough voice to call for his head, metaphorically speaking, next year. The problem, however, for him politically is threefold. So one, public trust in the government is very low. So if this plan depends on people sticking to the stricter measures for the few weeks between the end of lockdown and Christmas, well, that may not work. The government have lost control as a result of their failure to stick to their own rules. That's played out very badly in the country, as well as their failure to present a simple, clear, consistent message. The message keeps changing all the time. 2. Most anti-mask loonies are in the Conservative Party and quite a few are on his benches in Parliament. Conservative MPs are intending to vote against the tougher measures in numbers that are believed to defeat them were it not for opposition votes. So in other words, if Boris Johnson wanted to get these measures through and he didn't have opposition support, he'd be facing a defeat. And 3, well, Boris Johnson will get his measures through, but that presents its own political problems because he's going to do it with Labour votes. Labour are going to vote for this. Yet again, he's going to suffer the humiliation of effectively implementing a Labour policy because it's something that the Labour leadership and Labour MPs will support, but not all of his own. In fact, a significant number of his own MPs will not. And when you consider he has a large majority, and when you consider this is going to be a purely English matter as well, this is only going to apply in England. So you remove all the votes from the Northern Irish parties and the SNP, for example, as well as a few others in those areas. And so the majority that Boris Johnson has for purely English matters is even bigger than his overall majority for all UK matters. And yet he will still face a defeat without those Labour votes. That is politically embarrassing. Now, because the previous tier system was extremely weak, and the government scientific advisors now have the evidence to confirm that, according to reports anyway, because here's the thing about scientific advice. So obviously if we'd followed it from the start, and if we followed it at any point, we'd be in a much better place now. We could actually have been in a pretty good place. We could have been well set up for it. We had plenty of notice and we're an island. We could have shut things off quite easily. But now the anti-science lot in the Conservative Party wants to use science against science effectively. So they are demanding that Boris Johnson proves that any tightened measure will result in saved lives. In other words, he needs to prove that the revamped tier system will be backed up with scientific reasoning. Now, I have no problem with this at all. In fact, I'd be calling for it myself if I were an MP of whichever party. In my case, it would be the Labour Party. It makes no difference. So why would science-denying Tories want to challenge the Prime Minister to do this? After all, it should be an easy one to get science to justify the tougher measures. The reason is that if Boris Johnson publishes the full scientific advice, it will become obvious to everyone that he's actually ignoring lots of scientific advice. Johnson's approach to his expert advice is to take it and then water it down to the point where he thinks he can get away with it with his own party. So he just doesn't understand that the advice is what's necessary. You know, he treats it as if it's a negotiating position. Because, you know, in negotiations, your starting position is always much more than you're willing to really accept. The scientific advice in his mind is the negotiating position of the experts, and the do nothing at all proposal is the negotiating position of his party. So then he thinks he's working as a broker to come to a compromise between the two. The man's an idiot. I may have mentioned this once or twice before. But this creates a problem in that Conservative MPs can use this idiocy to discredit any tough measures that Johnson seeks to impose, because they will claim that he's been badgered into doing it or he's doing it for some other nefarious purpose, and there's no scientific basis for it. There's no analysis showing that it's going to benefit at all. After all, if there was this analysis, he'd publish it, wouldn't he? The Tory rebels, at least 70 of them, are demanding that Johnson also publish a full cost-benefit analysis. I doubt one even exists. If it does, it may do. I don't think he'd want to publish that either. This is a Prime Minister who's not really into publishing things. He likes to suppress things. Except last week when he decided to publish a report that showed that one of his senior cabinet colleagues had bullied staff. Half a year he had that report, and he chose to publish it during Anti-Bullying Week. Now, thankfully, there's no such thing as an Anti-Science Week in the UK, at least not yet, so I guess that means he'll never actually publish the full scientific advice that he receives. So what will inevitably happen is that Johnson will apply the tougher tier measures. He'll get it passed with Labour votes, very embarrassing. His own MPs and much of the Conservative media will undermine these measures and the weak message that comes with it, so compliance will be much lower than it should be as well. Which means goodness only knows what we're going to be looking forward to in the new year, vaccine or no. Remember, the vaccine can't actually do anything to reduce a rate of transmission. It can only help to stop it getting higher once you've inoculated the population. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.